Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the I'm Always Right Sport podcast. I am your host, as always, the Mouth of Michigan, Robin Dyka, along with my co-host, the Merc Zone, Mike Merkel.
Oh, yeah.
And the Brain, Emily Merkel. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
Doing great. A long time no see. You haven't been on in a week, you slacker. You've been, we had our resident NBA insider, Kyle Budzinowski. Shout out to Big Kyle for filling in for Em last week. But the original crew is back, and we're going to jump right into it. We're starting with pro wrestling this week, guys. We're talking about Wrestle Kingdom. We talked last week about it and how it was the biggest show of the year for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and boy, did it deliver. Obviously, let's just start right off the top. The biggest news coming out of it is every single title match had a title change, which I think is probably the first time we've seen that in a really long time from any promotion.
Yeah.
So I think that was huge. But Mike, I'm going to start with you. Me and you sat on Friday night. We watched it together. We took some notes.
Yeah.
Just give me your overall thoughts of the show, because I know we had a lot of takeaways back and forth. Yeah. Just give me your overall thoughts on the show.
I thought it was a very good card. Opening match was just like I expected. Mm-hmm. It was hard-hitting, fast and action-packed, and as you said, every single title change hands. I think once we got to the middle of the show, I think it kind of slowed down a little bit. It started off really fast. Once you hit about the U.S. Championship match, it really kind of... Yeah, we kind of lost our attention a little bit. But then it started to kick right back up, and then the main event hit, and we were both in shock. Yeah,
no kidding, absolutely. We'll talk about that in a second. I know you were kind of in and out of the room while we were watching, but anything you noticed that was different from some of the other bigger shows we've watched? Obviously, we watched Final Battle at the end of last month. We've seen some WWE pay-per-views. WrestleMania's coming right around the corner, so we'll have some comparisons there. But anything that you really noticed, any surprises, anything that really stood out to you as far as matches, or just your overall take on the show?
I mean, I think that last match was great, but like you said, I was kind of in and out of the room, but I think usually I can gauge how well a wrestling show is going by how into it you and Michael are.
Right?
And you guys were
exactly.
pretty geeked about it, so it was pretty cool. I think what I found most interesting was as I'd pop in and out of the room trying to figure out, like, if all the changes weren't happening with all Elite Wrestling and all of everything, all the transitions happening, like, what would the show have been like? Would these changes have happened if all those things weren't happening? Yeah. So was it a great show because of the changes, or was it a great show because Ring of Honor just really put on an awesome show?
No, New Japan, you mean? Yeah, but absolutely. That's obviously something that plays into it. I will say this, though, that I give New Japan a lot of credit. Knowing what we know about All Elite Wrestling, and we know the Young Bucks are gone, we know some guys are leaving, I think that, with the exception of probably the Cody Juice Robinson match, they did a really nice job of, even though that they were leaving, I think they did a really nice job of still getting everybody to buy in to these matches, right? You know, the Young Bucks were protected in that triple threat match for the heavyweight tag titles. Kenny was obviously protected against Tanahashi, even though he dropped the title. His finisher didn't get blown or anything like that. He didn't even get to use it, really enough, which is crazy in every sense. But I think they really did a nice job as far as protecting the guys leaving and protecting the integrity of the show and not giving the fans something to where we said, okay, we know what's going to happen. Okay, obviously the Cody Juice match we kind of knew, but with the exception of that, you really didn't, right? There was a lot of speculation. Was Kenny going to drop the heavyweight championship to Tanahashi? There was some speculation of, okay, with this new Bullet Club thing, what was going to happen? There was a lot of different pieces and some, even the Intercontinental title match with Jericho and Naito, was Jericho done? Is he coming back? What's he doing? And obviously that's something we'll monitor in future episodes. But I'm just going to go right off the top. Favorite match of the night for you? There were so many great pieces of action, so many great matches and great moments there that you really, it was basically just one big gif of just phenomenal action back and forth. Give me your top match of the night. I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to be interested.
Well, mine's a toss-up between two.
Okay.
Mine's a toss-up between actually the first match, the Never Openweight Championship, or the main event.
Okay.
It's one of the two for me, personally. Naito and Jericho stole the show, but I would say I like personally myself, I liked Ibushi Ospreay the best of anything else.
The best?
Show. Yeah.
Was it just because of the finish, that hard-hitting forearm at the back of the head?
Just like all together, it was just all like what I expected it to be. Like, I guess the first 3 minutes were kind of like slow and, okay, is this ever going to pick up? Right. And then once they started picking up and you knew this was all going to happen, and I was like crying watching this match because it was so amazing.
Right.
Like
absolutely
all the emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your favorite match? I know you were around for the majority of the time. I know I made you stay and sit and watch the main event. So did I create some bias there just because of that, or what was your favorite match on the card?
Well, I think probably the main event, but I just think it was probably the most intriguing, and I always love watching Kenny wrestle.
Right.
I just think it's like absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I love me some Marty, who I think was on the pre-show.
He was on the pre-show, right.
And I love Will Ospreay. Those are my two.
Yeah, we saw him live, and I know you mentioned that
my two Ring of Honor New Japan loves.
Right.
But watching Kenny wrestle is like amazing.
It really is fantastic. I think my favorite match had to have been the Intercontinental title match. Yeah. Even though I kind of going in, we kind of predicted that Jericho was going to drop the title to Naito. I still think that the way that finish happened, the story that they told there, they didn't abuse the finishers. They told a really great story. It was physical. It's something that New Japan's not really known for as far as a hardcore street fight brawl type of match.
Yeah.
I thought the main event was obviously fantastic. In a match that I don't think enough people are talking about that we kind of thought was not going to be that great was the Zack Sabre Jr. Tomohiro Ishii match for the Rev Pro title there. I thought that was a phenomenal match, and that's another match too that, and it seems like this is a recurring theme for us, that Zack Sabre Jr. is a guy that, you know, if you're not paying attention to him, folks, you really need to start looking at this guy, because even though his style's unorthodox and it's not as flashy as others are, like a Will Ospreay and what have you, his matches are always fantastic, and I feel like that his matches, for whatever reason on these shows, are kind of not talked about as much, but really should be taken a look at in a big way. Just overall, from the fallout of this show, what are we expecting to see from New Japan? Because now, you know, Kenny's probably leaving, we think. Young Bucks are gone, Cody's gone, Marty's probably going to be gone in a few months. That's a big chunk of some of their talent. They kind of reloaded a little bit. You know, Los Ingobernables, Bernal Blaze, and Bullet Club kind of shift to the main focus. The Elite's kind of out of it now.
Yeah.
What do you expect to see going forward for New Japan? Is it just going to be like it was before, Tanahashi running the roost, or do we see something else coming?
I don't know. I think you're going to start seeing people like Bushi kind of take some reins and step up a little bit.
Right.
To maybe he's going to be in the main event eventually. I think Jay White, you're going to see a lot more of Jay White. If you're a big Jay White fan, then you guys are probably going to be happy.
Big win over Okada.
Because he just, I think, announced right after the match that he's going to be fighting for the title against Tanahashi.
Right.
Probably in one of the next events. So, I mean, be ready for that. But, like, I think those two guys with like Los Ingobernables, they're gonna start, you know, being the main focus of all these shows, and I'm actually quite excited to see all that.
Right, absolutely. I know. We were talking about too, where you're gonna be like in foreign territory a little bit because all the guys that you watch that we've seen live are all leaving. Yeah. So now you're like, you know what I mean? So you're kind of like, okay, I got a whole bunch of these, all these Japanese guys working. I know that'll be something extremely interesting to kind of monitor and see forward. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do as far as Naito's kind of trajectory. He's with the Intercontinental title right now. I know he just got a challenger, was a Tai Chi from Suzuki Gun, who just came in and challenged him. I think that's going to be something to where you kind of go, okay, yes, but I don't think that's really... I'm expecting his trajectory. I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like he's got a Shinsuke vibe before Shinsuke left with that Intercontinental Championship and really going to make it a focal point of New Japan again. Yeah. I think there's a lot of things. And obviously Jericho's situation, him challenging for the title against Tanahashi, he's already made that proclamation that he'd like to challenge Tanahashi. Yeah. I think that is something that I think everybody wants to see.
What do you think Okada's going to do?
I think Okada would be perfect. I think him and Naito to kind of allow the Intercontinental title to kind of shine again. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think they need to get the United States Championship off of Juice Robinson relatively quickly. No offense, Juice. But I think that championship needs to have a full... Maybe Okada's that guy to kind of set the bar. I mean, I know Kenny held it, you know, but Jay White kind of fell a little bit, Juice, and then Cody just held it for a brief minute there. I think that Okada could definitely be a guy that takes the U.S. Championship and really brings it to another level and adds legitimacy to the championship, similar to what Nakamura did for the Intercontinental title. Because as fans remember, when the Intercontinental Championship in New Japan was first established, it was not the championship that we know from WWE, where it was held in this high regard. It was just another championship. Guys like MVP and Masato Tanaka were champions that didn't really do anything for the title. And then Shinsuke held it, Tanahashi held it, Kenny held it. So it was added legitimacy to the title title, and I think they need a big-time former world champion to really take that title to the next level. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
All right, we're shifting focus. We're shifting out of pro wrestling, and we're shifting to the NFL, more local. The Detroit Lions, obviously, the season ended 6-10, ending with a great victory over the Green Bay Packers. I don't care what anybody says. A 31-0 victory over the Green Bay Packers is a 31-0 victory over the Green Bay Packers. So, yay. So we're going to be talking more about the Bob Quinn press conference. Obviously, we don't hear from Bob Quinn much during the season. He's kind of the man behind the scenes. He's obviously the general manager of the Detroit Lions and executive vice president. He's not really in the forefront at all during the season. Draft time is really the most we hear from him, and obviously the end of the season here. Mike, I know we watched this press conference. I was taken aback by it. I really enjoyed the press conference. It's one of the few press conferences I've seen where I feel like there was actually some information given, which usually doesn't happen very often. I feel like he came out, and to his credit, he kind of stood there. He really took it on the chin.
Oh, yeah.
He really did. I think that for him to be able to stand there and take every single question, whether it's the Matt Patricia accusations, whether it's Matthew Stafford, whether it's missing out on some trades, trading Golden Tate away, every possible criticism that he could have over this past season, I think he took and responded and didn't just give a generic, well, those are private conversations. I think that he added some background to some of those points. How did you feel just on his overall, on the press conference, and just what he said and the message, that he kind of delivered it? Because I thought I was well informed after the fact.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Usually, one thing I always critique him about is during the season, they get like a big blowout loss or something, like the Jets game. I'm expecting him and like Patricia, he always comes out, but I'm expecting him to come out and be like, hey, this is kind of what went wrong. We thought we had some, and he never comes out through the season. You don't see him much come out. They trade Tate, and everyone's like, why'd you trade Tate? And no answer. Yeah. And everyone's just kind of wondering why. And now I love this because he just comes out and he goes, ask any question you want. Right. And I'll give you the best answer I can get. Right. And he stood up there for 45 minutes, I think it was. Yeah. And he just went, oh, you don't think Stafford's this? Well, here's why. Or, hey, we traded Tate because of this. And here's this because of that. And he just went through everything that was ever criticized through the season and laid it out right on the table for everybody. And now we all know where he stands. And I actually loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I know you kind of took the same thing where you're like, well, I actually got something out of this press conference. And I was like, wow, I actually understood what he was saying as far as hey, he addressed things that were the rumor mill. The Rob Gronkowski trade talks, which I think all of us here can kind of agree. We think that probably Gronkowski, if he doesn't veto that trade, is probably a Detroit Lion right now. So I think those types of remarks, and I'll ask you in a second, but those kinds of remarks to me really stand out because I'm like, okay, thank you. For me, it's more of a about time. Thank you for addressing the fans as far as. The media asked some very pointed questions, and I thought he did a great job of really acknowledging that. And what did you think overall?
So, as kind of our social business commentator, I thought that his PR team did a fabulous job in prepping him. Right. Most likely. I think that when you are a leader in any way, honesty will earn you the most respect out of everything. So when you come forward and you admit your own mistakes, we've seen it through presidencies, we've seen it with CEOs, and I think that's kind of one of the gritty things about Detroit is kind of the people of Detroit. They're kind of honest, hardworking people. So I think if we can get that power behind its sports and get Bob Quinn, answering tough questions, getting a little dirty or a little gritty into the details, just sharing his story, you kind of get the power of the people and the team back behind you.
And I know people are going to say, well, yeah, he's the GM, and yeah, you should be explaining these things after a down year. No doubt about it. But let's not kid ourselves here. They can say as much or as little as they want, if we're being honest. And one of the bigger surprises that I thought came out for me was the Matthew Stafford talk. And I know that some of the media really asked some pointed questions about he had a down year. Can you understand why the fans are frustrated and why the fan base is frustrated? And for me, what he literally came out and said, yeah, I get it, and I understand. And then he gave several very pointed and specific answers to why he feels the way he does. And he mentioned talking with Bruce Ellington, who first signed here, and worked extensively with him for 2 straight days to get him prepared to play the following week, because those are the things that, and he took practice squad guys that were there for 3-4 days a week, and he showed them how to run a route, or why you should do this, or why you do that. Guys that he really doesn't need to be spending time talking to, just to make everybody better. And I know a criticism of Stafford has been, he doesn't show that emotion to the media after a loss, after a win, what have you. But I thought Bob Quinn coming out and giving very specific examples about some of the guys in this locker room and how hard they work, I thought was not only helpful for a fan like us to where we can go, okay, but also for the media to kind of go, all right, I get it a little bit. Obviously Detroit media is ruthless. They're going to keep pounding until we win the Super Bowl. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think that those pointed questions and the fact that he went and cited specific examples really helps not only his case for signing Stafford that extension or explaining why, he is a Stafford guy and why he's behind him. He put an end to the trade talks, hopefully, for a season. Those kind of things to me were some of the bigger surprises. Mike, what did you think was some of the big surprises, or something that you were like, whoa, I didn't expect to hear from that or to hear that side of our story, but was glad to hear?
I was we were talking about this right before we started the show, actually, the Stafford talk, because I think a lot of people give Stafford a lot of crap when he's sitting on the sideline. And
he looks uninterested, right?
Yeah, he just looks like he's out of it, like he just doesn't really want to be there and all that. And I think his insight on how much Stafford really wants to be there and how much he cares, like, to the media, he's like, he doesn't show it. He's just like average. But when he's in that locker room, everyone feels and everyone sees his emotion and how upset.
Him.
And I think all of that, I think that was probably the most shocking thing I've heard. I also liked to hear about the Golden Tate trade rumors and when they trade him, his thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned that too, actually, that she said that she was surprised because when they traded Golden, right, I know you were like, why are they trading this guy?
I was like, I thought he was good at football.
Yeah, right. Right, but to your point, right, Mike, is that you get some of this insight and even the minor stuff, the Khalil Mack stuff, where he's like, yeah, we had conversations, right? We had conversations about Eric Ebron. We had conversations about every major name in the tight end position. Those kind of just little tidbits of information where I do feel like they would be served best when stuff like that happens. Like, even the snacks trade, right?
Yeah.
I would have loved for Bob Quinn at least to have a 10-minute hey, listen, we completed a trade with the New York Giants for Damon Harrison. Here's what we think he brings to our team.
Yeah.
Just something super simple.
I wish through the year, like I said, I wish we got more of that through the season. But I love it that at least at the end of the season, he goes, okay, this is everything that happened, and this is why. And I loved everything about the press conference, and I did learn a lot of good stuff through it. So.
Right. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys both this question. Em, I'm going to start with you. Overall evaluation of Bob Quinn during his 3 years, because to me, I think it's kind of a mixed bag a little bit. I think he's done a pretty nice job drafting for the most part. Tease Tabor kind of, outwithstanding, which, by the way, I give him credit for saying Tease Tabor has not played like he thought he would. You know what I mean? He said, if I was batting 1,000 on my draft picks of free agency, we'd be 16-0. I thought that was a great quote.
Yeah.
Where I thought that was funny, and I thought that showed he's like, listen, I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to be as best I can. Overall evaluation of him over 3 years, obviously 9-7, 9-7, 6-10 records, but do you think, is this team better off with him compared to like Martin Mayhew, the former GM?
So I will caveat this statement with the fact that we have been dating for 2.5 years. So,
so you got 2 seasons? So
I got 2 seasons in. I would say that I appreciate him driving for change, for not being afraid to like take the risks and kind of, bring in some new people and try some different things. And even though this season, we kind of dropped off a little bit, like being willing to drive for change and do things differently.
Absolutely.
In spite of the fact that you might not get instantaneous results. I really respect that in any leader. So I think that's a really good thing. And if he continues with this kind of more honest streak of kind of like sharing a little more with the public and the press, I think that that would be a good improvement and continuation into the rest of his.
And to his tenure, right, obviously, and we know that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are tied at the hip, 5-year extensions each way when Matt Patricia got hired. So obviously they're tied together, for better or worse. If Matt Patricia does well, Bob Quinn's doing well. Bob Quinn does well and he drafts the right guys, puts Patricia in a position to win. It's a marriage, guys. So we're going to be stuck with these guys for at least probably 2 more years, if nothing else. So, Mike, same question. Overall evaluation of Bob Quinn as the general manager since he's been hired 3 years ago.
I mean, I think he's been doing just a pretty good job. I would say his drafting, I think, has been pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, you get guys like Kenny Galladay and Deshaun Hand in the 3rd round, where you would expect. If I was Deshaun Hand went round, most people would be like, oh, first because he's so good.
Right.
No, we got him in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
They're finding talent late in drafts, which you pay them less, opens up cap for more players that you can get, and they're good right away, which is extremely hard to find a 3rd, 4th, 5th round talent to use right away. So I think in that case he's good, and 2 out of 3 years he's been winning. It's not we're sitting there at 6-10, 6-10, and 7-9.
Right.
You're sitting there with 2 winning seasons, and this is the anomaly year, and hopefully this continues to be only the anomaly year, and every other year he's constantly being successful. I mean, I don't have any wrongdoing with him.
Right, and honestly, that's kind of where I'm at. In his first offseason, obviously, Calvin Johnson retired, so he was kind of behind the 8 ball to begin with, right? He went and signed Marvin Jones to a nice contract, and really Marvin Jones has never been better in any situation since he came here to Detroit.
Absolutely.
But I think the extension of Matthew Stafford was pivotal. I think his drafting, especially obviously the first couple rounds, Taylor Decker starter, Frank Ragnow starter, Jared Davis starter, finding guys later, Kerryon Johnson, obviously, Kenny Galladay, Deshaun Hand, just every guy that they've drafted, they haven't been all hits, right?
Absolutely.
He's taken some flyers, the Jake Rudocks, the Michael Roberts, some of those haven't panned out the way we'd all hoped that they would. But I will say that the way we have drafted the past couple of years and some of the free agent acquisitions that we've made has really kind of transformed this team. And I'm going to give a shout out here to Rod Wood a little bit too. The Lions going into this offseason, folks, have around $40 million in cap space. And that I anticipate is going to grow a little bit with T.J. Lang either doing a restructure or being released, and Glover Quinn probably being released or retiring. But excluding those, $40 million in cap space, I can't tell you the last time they've been in this good of a cap situation, right? Even with the ginormous contract of Matthew Stafford, they have this much money to spend, and they have guys right now in pivotal positions that are making good but not great money. Devon Kennard, right, is making good money, not making great money, good money. Ziggy's obviously gone, so you're going to go get a premier defensive end, but you have guys in positions, and they've been very selective on who they've paid. You know what I mean? For better or for worse, they haven't handed out all these long-term contracts. It's been a lot of one-year prove-it deals. If we like you, you'll come back. If not, you're gone. But we've allowed ourselves a lot of cap flexibility going forward to where this offseason, I feel specifically, is going to be a big offseason for them.
Absolutely.
The amount of cap space, high draft picks, I feel like you have young talent to build around, like you mentioned. This is definitely going to be an offseason that we're going to have to follow very closely here because I feel like this is going to be a year, especially defensively, where we're going to see a lot of change happen. We're going to take a quick break. You're going to hear from us, and we're going to plug all of our social media and everything about it. But we'll be right back, and we'll be coming back with Black Monday in the NFL. 7 coaches fired last Monday, along with Jim Bob Cooter. He's gone too. And then we're also talking NHL All-Star games and why we should even have All-Star games and for any reason whatsoever. So we'll be right back. Hey guys, this is the Mouth of Michigan, Ron Medeka. Just reminding you about our social media pages. You can find us at I'm Always Right on Facebook.
On Twitter at I'm Always Right PC.
And on Instagram at I'm Always Right PC.
And you should be looking for us on YouTube because this right here is going to be the very first episode that's uploaded to our YouTube channel. You'll see the link in our SoundCloud and on all of our social media. If you're not following us, now is the time to do it. Tons of listens, tons of followers. Jump on the bandwagon now. Now stay tuned for part 2 of episode 6 of I'm Always Right. Okay, and welcome back to part 2 of episode 6 of I'm Always Right. We're going to be talking Black Monday on the NFL. 7 coaches got fired the Monday after the regular season ended. Obviously, Green Bay and Cleveland already fired their coaches, got a jump start on all that. Mike, just a brief any surprise firings? Like, that's a quarter of the league that just basically got fired and has to find a new head coach, which it seems high, but we say that every year. I feel like it always seems high. Right, right. So I guess my question is: any surprise firings? Really, like Marvin Lewis was there forever and set a pretty good level of mediocrity in Cincinnati for about a decade and a half. Adam Gase, Miami guy. Any surprise firings?
Actually, I was going to say Adam Gase. I think it's kind of shocking to me,
right?
Because the AFC East isn't hard, but there's just the one dominating.
Right. There's New England. Right.
That's all you gotta say about it. But I mean, when you look, you get fired after a 10-6 season like he just had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a tough fire.
Yeah,
like,
that's extremely tough.
Just imagine if you're like, I had a winning season, and then you're like, oh, see ya, we're gonna go get somebody new. And you're like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like,
and I know their offense was really not the issue. You know, I think that Adam Gase has a play caller at least. I think he got the best year out of Jay Cutler that anybody ever got. You know, and he did well in Denver with Peyton Manning. I know Peyton recommends him highly. And I know you mentioned, the Green Bay firing obviously was pretty shocking that we talked about on our premiere episode, which you can find available in the archives on our SoundCloud account. But if besides that, any surprise firings? Did you think that possibly I know the Falcons fired both their offensive and defensive coordinator. There were a couple other, the Jets firing Todd Bowles. Any surprise firings, or were you kind of expect that just because the NFL changes a quarter of their coaches every year?
The NFL just likes to do like a chair swap where they just fire everyone and then rehire everyone
rehire everybody
into a different team.
Right.
And so it doesn't really surprise me. I think people who are more into the nitty-gritty of football than your casual sports fan like myself are probably like, oh, that's crazy. But to me, it's like, no, they just play musical chairs every year.
Right, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. I was kind of surprised a little bit with Marvin Lewis, just simply because they just signed an extension last year after they thought they were going to fire him, and now they brought him back. And I think Todd Bowles gets a little bit of flack, too. I was kind of surprised by that one. Rookie quarterback, I don't think the defense is the problem. They haven't had a good quarterback since he got there. I think Darnold is going to be a star.
Yeah.
I think they could have given him... I know that's probably why they fired him, though, is to go get an offensive guy to go get him. But I think Todd Bowles is a hell of a defensive coordinator, so I expect him to get scooped up just like that. But kind of moving on to a bigger issue here, do you think it's fair for only head coaches to be blamed for failures? And this is why I say this. Guys that have been, like for instance, Cincinnati, their owner is their GM. But a lot of times you see, like in Tampa Bay, right? Dirk Cutter gets fired, but the GM stays, right? All these GMs are staying, but most of the time these GMs are also the guys that are hiring these guys. So, and I understand that coaches have to coach the players that they're given, but I feel like the GM should definitely be blamed for some of this as well. There's very rare situations where the GM inherits a coach, right? Where a new GM gets hired, like kind of in our situation here in Detroit. But for the most part, you fire your coach, you fire your GM, you kind of bring them together, and you kind of roll with it, at least after a season or two. Why is it that, or I guess, should GMs be on such a short... Steve Wilkes for the Arizona Cardinals got fired after 1 year. Steve Keim's not going to get fired, though, and is going to have an opportunity to hire another coach, even though he's now hired 2, and they have no championships. They got no NFC championships. They got a couple division titles, but besides that, you know what I mean? Is it just that's just how it is, or should GMs have a shorter lease too?
I think there's obviously 2 ways to look at it. I think GMs should have a shorter leash,
right?
Because it feels like sometimes you can go through 5 coaches before maybe it's actually your
fault, right?
Yeah, but I think you should look at, first you should go down to the first level and say the team as a whole, because if you don't have much to work with as a team as a whole, say Arizona doesn't really have much as a whole to work with, then the coach...
You're set up for failure.
Yeah, you're kind of setting the coach up for failure, which then sets you up for failure as a result.
Right.
So I think you have to look at all of that in totality, because say something like Green Bay, where you have Aaron Rodgers, so usually you're having average seasons.
It masks some of the problems with the team.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So then you're oh well, McCarthy, how are we gonna? He's 9-7, and then once you're 9-7, then you're good because the guy you hired is doing good, but it's really just carried off of one person.
Right.
I think they should equally kind of get blamed, and I think they should be on definitely a shorter leash. Right. Than I think it should be maybe 2 coaches, and if you go through 2 coaches and both don't work, then you're maybe you're the problem too.
Right, and I think it's tough too, especially because the GM obviously has a lot more control usually in football operations as far as the talent and as talent acquisition, getting a scouting department together and what have you. So I think that changing GMs is difficult and it sets teams back. Clearly, you know what I mean. You usually hire if you fire a GM, it means that your team or your roster really is underperforming to what the money you spent, how high draft picks you've had, etc. And same question: do you think that GM should have shorter leashes, similar to NFL head coaches? Because right now it seems like it's a revolving door until everybody finds the next Sean McVay, and that's obviously not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, are you kind of in the same sentiment as Mike, or do you think that GM should have a little more leeway just because it's harder to hire and fire as quickly in a more managerial, general manager position than it would be just as a coach?
I think a GM is playing a little bit more of a long game than a coach is in some regards, though. Right. I mean, obviously, coaches want to have really long legacies, but at the end of the day, a GM's trying to stock and improve a team for a much longer period of time. The arc, So his approval trajectory is going to be a lot slower and more gradual than coaches are looking at every game every season and they're looking at it in smaller chunks usually. So I think that you require a little bit longer of a leash for a GM, but I do think there probably are a couple who are just running in circles. I think you're the people who are managing your GM, team owners and whatnot. I think they just have to be cognizant of the fact that everything on a team isn't always a coach's fault. If there's issues, there's other people.
With talent, right? And I think that's the big thing is talent, right? And I think that's a perfect. I don't know if Steve Wilkes is truly a great head coach or not. Well, we may never know that, but I guess my point being, a guy like that who you hire, less than a year ago, you fire him now. I get it. You're the worst team in the league, but you start a rookie quarterback. You signed Sam Bradford to $20 million for what reason? I'll never understand. You don't have any wide receivers. Your running game was terrible this year, even with David Johnson. Your running game was terrible. Your defense wasn't very good, and I get it. He was a defense coordinator in Carolina, but even got like Todd Bowles, rookie quarterback. Mike McCarthy, I kind of get. I think that him and the Aaron Rodgers thing, we've talked about ad nauseum before. The Adam Gase thing, once again, another guy, you made the best with what you could. You had Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback or Brock Osweiler. Those aren't great options, folks. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here. They're just not. So I think that, even Dirk Cutter, I think, should be blamed a little bit for the Jameis Winston thing, so I understand that. But overall, if you have no talent, it's really hard. It's really hard to win in this league. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm just going to ask you guys, just in the fantasy world here, you're a free agent, you're a hot up-and-coming coordinator. Mike, probably more likely defensively based off of how you play Madden. But, so up-and-coming defense coordinator Mike Merkel, Ian Rappaport is reporting that you are a hot candidate for all of these jobs. Going down the entire list, Miami, Tampa Bay, Cleveland, Green Bay, wherever. If I'm a GM and I'm like, I want to hire you, what team am I on? What team do you want to go to be the head coach for? It's your first time being a head coach. Where do you want to go?
I would go to the Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
Here's why. It was either them.
Yeah.
I had another team in mind, but the reason I don't pick them and I pick the Browns is the level of talent that they have, especially on a low, rookies to 2 years in, talent that they have,
I would hope so,
is astronomically better than half these other teams that are available. You have, I believe, what you would be the quarterback in Baker Mayfield. As we're watching, he brought him from 0 to 7 wins this year. So you probably have your guy there. You have some stellar defensive players. You have Myles Garrett. You have Jabril Peppers, Denzel Ward. You have those guys good. You have offensive pieces. You have everything as a whole. So as a coordinator or even head coach, you're looking at that. You're going, I have all these players I can develop.
And you still have tons of cap space.
And you have tons of cap space. I mean, that's probably the prime position to be in. So. And that would be my number one choice.
Even with ownership, as crazy as there that Haslam, he's just.
Well, I don't think it would take much. If they're oh, you only have 2 years, whatever.
Okay,
I think you can still make it work because of all the talent that you have. So I think
possibly.
I think somehow you can make it work in that case.
What? Just give first ever woman's head coach. You've somehow managed to rise to the ranks. You scoff at me, but tell me another one who's been close. But since you are the brain, the analytical genius that you are, What's a team? Is it Green Bay just to spite me and piss me off? Is it
I didn't think of that. That's a good idea.
Is it Miami? Is it the Jets? Not yet. Right? Just waiting.
Can we just keep him as GM?
Right?
And just hang on.
Is it Miami? Is it Tampa? Where is it? Denver. That's another one, right? I mean, where would you want to go? Just looking at it, even if you just pick it straightly based off of just to spite me, which you shouldn't do that, but if you wanted to.
I don't know. I think the Packers might be an easy spot to slide into. But Miami weather is nice.
Right.
So you're asking me a hard question that I don't have a really good answer to for you. I'd love to beat the Lions every time if I was the Packers head coach and just make Rob cry. We probably wouldn't get married though.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers would be over for dinner every day.
Don't make me.
We'd be best friends.
Stop it. That's
he asked me that question, which annoyed me, so I'm going to give him an annoying answer.
Alright, if I had to choose, I think I would choose...
The Packers?
Oh no, throw up my mouth right now. But
I'm going to get Rodgers?
Oh jeez, no.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. If I had to choose, honestly, I think one of the better positions to be in, and I know you guys are going to kind of be like, I think it is Tampa Bay. And here's why I say this. And Bruce Arians is, we've kind of seen in the reports that Bruce Arians is looking like he's going to be the new guy over there. But I think Tampa Bay is a team that's very interesting because their offense really wasn't the problem in Tampa, right? It's their defense. I think that if you can go, especially now that Todd Bowles is available, I'm looking and I'm going, okay, if I get hired as Tampa Bay head coach, if I can go in and I can figure out either in one season, I'm either going to know Jameis Winston's my guy or he's not, right?
Yeah.
But you have enough offensive weapons to make a move, you know what I mean, and to make a splash. So I think that's a team that when you look at it, if you can go get a solid defensive coordinator like a Todd Bowles, for instance, right? And you start hitting on some of these draft picks a little bit. They drafted Vita Vea last year to be their anchor, now that McCoy's getting there up in age. But
yeah.
I think that's a team really that, especially on the offensive side of the ball, which is what, as we know, when I play Madden, is what I play is offense. So is something, I think this is a team that's very interesting. Obviously the Jets, too, would be another interesting one for me.
Jets, too.
Because Sam Darnold obviously looks like a guy who could be there. That defense is not bad. You've got solid players around. Jamal Adams. You got Tremaine Johnson. They've even got Morris Claiborne from Dallas from a few years ago. So they have some pieces there, too. I think it's another team that... I think they need another playmaker on that team, though, for being super competitive.
So let's flip this around then. So what's one of the 8 teams that you would absolutely never go to?
Green Bay.
Green Bay?
Yeah.
You would have no chance of going to Green Bay.
Here's why, though, and this is why. Because I still feel organizationally, actually there's 2. Green Bay is number 1, and then Cincinnati's number 2.
I was going to say, I was going to go Cincinnati.
Okay, I'll let you explain Cincinnati. But Green Bay, for this one reason.
You don't like cheese.
Organizationally, their uniforms are icky. But no, they're...
throwbacks?
They're organizationally, that team, right, is hindered upon one player, right? There's too much to do in that team for any new coach to survive. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's Josh McDaniels. I don't care, unless it's Belichick. There's no coach right now that's going to be able to fix that team unless Aaron Rodgers is playing well. Straight up to the point, right? We saw it this year for the first time, really, that Aaron Rodgers was not able to take a team with not very much talent and elevate them to a level we expect of them, right? He's not getting any younger, right? Even if you have some cap space, the people you signed in the offseason, Jimmy Graham, total waste of time. Wilkerson got hurt week 1. Total waste of time. You haven't drafted as well as you'd hoped. You drafted every corner that's ever came out of the draft for the past 3 seasons. And if you don't get Aaron Rodgers the way you need to be, and I feel like almost if you're not in sync with Aaron Rodgers, if you do things and Aaron Rodgers like, I don't like that very much, you're dead before you even start. I think that is a cultural issue that Green Bay is facing right now, and I think a lot of Green Bay fans are a little bit worried based off of this season's performance that while we're paying this guy a lot of money, totally worth it, I get it, I understand it, you had to do it, but you're paying this guy a lot of money, and maybe now Aaron Rodgers is no longer superhuman. Maybe he's just human a little bit. You know what I mean? Where he needs somebody to throw it to. He needs an okay running game. He needs a defense who can stop literally anybody. You know what I mean? I think that's a team, and I know you're going to hit up Cincinnati, so put them to the ringer, because what a crap organization.
Cincinnati is just... They have...
Ownership alone is nuts.
Oh, yeah. They have, I think, A.J. Green. and
There you go.
Joe Mixon.
There you go.
And let's name another player on that team.
Nailed
Like,
it.
I'm completely honest.
Nailed
Like,
it.
that's it.
I forget Cincinnati's like in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah,
Because like that's how my
they're never on TV. I don't think they've had a single primetime game, like Sunday night, Monday night, like all year.
They make me sad.
Like they're always at the 1 o'clock slot that like everyone just kind of like we're gonna watch Lions instead.
Right.
Like they just have like everything's a mess. They've been so long of 16 years of just.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I totally get it, man.
And it wouldn't even be like if they're in a weak division,
right?
Maybe they'd have a chance. But when you have to go against the Ravens, the Steelers, and now the Browns are making up, and now you're the worst team there, and now you're looking at,
and you will be,
and you easily will be for a while.
Reset, you need a completely change. You're right. You're absolutely right.
I don't think there's any way you get in there.
All right, let's shift now a little bit to back to local. Here we went local, then we went big, then we're going back to local again, and we're going to another firing that happened. Jim Bob Cooter, obviously, and the Lions are, he's out, he's gone, fired, mutually agreed to part ways, whatever. Just overall, as we know, right, when Jim Caldwell was hired, Joe Lombardi was hired to be the OC. That was an epic disaster. So Jim Bob took over and really kind of transformed the offense a little bit. Stafford put up great numbers. They were really in sync. The offense for about a good 26-game stretch was one of the best in the league, output-wise. And then ever since then, it's been a slow matriculation back down to just complete and utter garbage. So what went wrong for JBC? Started off so hot, obviously. What went wrong?
I think initially he had like the play calling of like not like Andy Reid, but he could design some good stuff, and it was like stuff that you've never really seen before. Especially like if you watch a lot of Lions games, you're like, well, they never really did that, and now they do that all the time. Or like, wow, that was an interesting run play that they just did that they'd never done before. Like, wow, but then as time went on, he never changed. It was a constant like. So we brought in this new screenplay, but now we're gonna run it 17 times every single game. And teams are just and now people are just going to catch on, and it's bad. And I brought this exact point up before, but it's bad when they're playing the Jets and they call something, and the Jets literally shift their entire team, all 10 guys over to Golden Tate because it's going to be a screen pass over there. It's getting bad when teams can literally call out plays by formation.
Yeah, that's that's absolutely.
So
correct.
I think that's where it went down. Pretty bad.
What happened? What did he do? Did he just kind of fall in love with the game? Did he just did he just rest on his laurels? Like what happened to him?
I think having some instantaneous success can kind of cause you to be complacent. So in operations management, there's this thing called Kaizen, which is continuous improvement, which is kind of what Michael touched on. He had some innovative streak there that kind of really jived really well, and then he was like, okay, we're all done. And in anything to do, if you've done something innovative, doing it once isn't enough. You kind of gotta keep improving it. And I think everyone's like, Stafford and Jim Bob Cooter, they're gonna be the bestest offensive coordinator, quarterback, best friends ever. And
it worked, right? And it did work for an extended period of time, really. A good season and a half, almost 2 years, really, where we saw some dramatic offensive improvement. The output for Stafford was really well. Obviously, he was a holdover, right, from the Caldwell era. But do you think Patricia put him in a position to succeed? Because when you look at it and you go, okay, he's a defensive guy. I feel like because they wanted to run the ball more, I think that put a damper a little bit on his play calling. I think injuries obviously have a little bit to do with it. But at the same time, you weren't hurt at the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? And the offense, even though they played well, I think obviously the Jets game was a complete disaster in all 3 phases, right? So let's exclude that for a minute. Okay. Even the San Fran game, I thought offensively they played okay, right? The New England game they played well. A couple of those wins there in the middle of the season they played well, and then as soon as Golden got traded, it felt like the offense. Even I get it, Golden Tate was a major piece of this offense, but you can't drop off from averaging 26 points a game to 7. That's a massive drop off in production and output there. So do you think that Patricia hindered him, and is that what he's going to do for the new OC? Because I don't feel like that's going to be, but there's a 10% of me who's worried about it.
How often do you think Patricia has any input in the offensive play calling?
I would say,
do you think he's
honestly,
like, I want you to do this here? Like, how much?
No,
input,
I would say
to
more it's a situational thing where it's like, okay, hey, listen, we're on the, if we in a fourth down situation here and we're on their 40, we're gonna go for it. Call down.
But it's not like
here.
play call.
I would be stunned to hear Patricia be like, no, I want to run play here on 3rd and 11.
But because I think that's where it's weird because I think he wasn't really in the spot to succeed because like. Earlier, like 2 years ago, you wouldn't see they threw the ball so much more, and now all of a sudden, like this year, they're like they do what Seattle does, and Seattle has a really good running game. Don't get me wrong, but what Seattle does is they just run and run and run, and even if they average 0.8 yards a carry, they will still run it. Fourth quarter, they will still run it, and they don't know when to die away from the run, and like you're down 14. Now you need to start passing, but they keep running. Yeah. And I think that's and Seattle does it, and other teams do it, and I don't know why. Like I don't know why that's a thing now. Yeah. But like when the Lions are getting down, especially when their defense wasn't there, like against Dallas and stuff. Right. When their defense is letting up early, and you're down like 14, 17-0, you can't just go 2 straight run plays, and then try to 3rd and 11 try to pass it out of it. Right. Like you got to start like moving the ball a little bit, and I think that's Jim Bob just would never get there, and like. First down, let's actually throw the ball. They would never get there.
Right.
Throw the ball past the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
Past the line of scrimmage.
All right. That does help a lot. Okay, so give me this then. Dream scenario, who's the new OC?
Me.
besides them.
I would love it. You.
Yeah, right? There you go, right?
Yeah. In all sincerity, I would actually like to see... And I've been talking about this a lot. Yeah. Someone like Adam Gase.
Yeah, that's my dream. I think we're all
like as a dream scenario. That would be nice. I mean, just anyone that can just hold the offense. Like, just be like, hey, I'm gonna take over the offense. Patricia and you do defense because that's what your specialty is.
I absolutely
agree. Let me just take the offense. And Adam Gase, as a former head coach with 10-win seasons in Miami.
Totally agree.
I think he could come in with Stafford and make this offense better.
Got the best years out of Cutler, or the best year out of Cutler, and was Peyton Manning's right-hand man in Denver. Yeah, I think that's a great marriage, especially to allow some creativity. Overall, I think it's going to be, I think Bob Quinn mentioned this in his press conference where you're going to let Stafford be Stafford and put him in a position to succeed and lead this team in the right direction. All right, let's shift now. We're shifting from the NFL and we're shifting to hockey here. Last topic of the show, we're talking NHL All-Star. Jimmy Howard, goalie for the Red Wings, was selected to be in the All-Star game. Now, as you may or may not know, the NHL has this weird rule where there's at least one person on every team that makes the All-Star game. I don't know why, but that's the thing.
Is that a participation trophy?
Kinda, right. And I feel like we're answering, by our reactions, I think we're answering one of my questions already. But we're going to start off with, was Jimmy Howard the right choice to be the Detroit Red Wings representative if no other guy makes it? Which Larkin's kind of like in a fan voting thingy, but regardless, right? Howard's in. And he's even said that Larkin should be in it. Should Larkin be the guy to represent the Detroit Red Wings?
I would have rather have Larkin in it.
Right.
However, I guess like from where they are in their division and everything from their side, it doesn't matter. But like they need a goalie there, so like Jimmy Howard, I guess, was like one of the better goalies, so we'll throw him in. But like to me, I like Larkin's. For me, is easily the number one choice. Right. But if it's not Larkin, I guess we'll have Jimmy Howard in there.
I feel like it was almost like a name recognition thing a little bit, because I think Larkin was there last year. Now, as we were talking about, they have one person from every team. That's dumb, right? Are we all in agreement here that that's kind of dumb? I think Em made a perfect a participation trophy. That's like a perfect thing because let's be real here, folks. The Red Wings aren't good. Yeah. So. You know what I mean?
Are you allowed to say that?
I know, I'm definitely allowed to say it because they haven't been good for 5 years.
No,
so
they're not even 500 right now.
Right. So you look at it and you go, this is stupid. And why do we have somebody? And I get it. Like every once in a while, you have a guy who's really, really good on a bad team, right? That's not necessarily like Connor McDavid on the Edmonton Oilers. When they were bad, he's still a stud, right? He's a good player, so he's going to make the All-Star team regardless. But
absolutely.
I mean, that's dumb, right? To have them... I mean, is it smart, I guess, to have like a little bit... So everybody... Is that the NHL saying, hey, watch it because this guy from your team is in the All-Star game?
Okay, listen. My only complaint about it, and it's not really a complaint, I just don't like it. Right. Because I'm a big NBA fan, and say they did this for the NBA, this is what it would be. So you pick one person from the Warriors who have 5 All-Stars. So say you pick Curry.
Right.
So Durant's not even in the All-Star game now.
Right.
And
unless he wins a fan vote.
Yeah. And then you're gonna take like Jokic instead of Kevin Durant in the All-Star game. Or you're gonna take someone like from the worst. You're gonna take someone from the Suns.
Right.
You're gonna take Eric Bledsoe from the Suns, and he's gonna go play. Instead of Kevin Durant's gonna play. I think stuff like that, where like some teams that have multiple stars. I think it should just be the best players, which is why I like the NFL. The NFL's like, yo, Lions, no one stepped up and did good enough this year. You might not get anybody this year.
Although I do think Snacks is a pretty big.
I think
omission.
I think there should be some guys, but like at the same time, like
if you're not a good team, you shouldn't have anybody on.
Like the Raiders, no offense, probably shouldn't get anybody in there. I don't think they do have anybody.
I don't think they do either. Right.
But like, let's talk about the Chiefs. You should have Patrick Mahomes should be in it. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, they should all be in it because they all did good.
Absolutely.
So I think it's more on like, did you do good all year?
Right. All right. So last topic, really, as the All-Star games are kind of a hot topic for some people really love the All-Star games. Some people really find them boring. I am in that camp where I find them extremely boring. But number one, are you watching the NHL All-Star game? Number one. There you go. No, right? Adam's like, no, I'm not doing that.
I don't like hockey games.
I was gonna say I don't like hockey that much.
And then two, should they just kind of All-Star games don't mean anything, right? Obviously, we talked about baseball is the only one that really decides anything. Yeah. But that can be remedied really easily with best record gets home field advantage. So the Pro Bowl's after the season in the NFL. NBA, it sucks. It's 300 to 302 is the final. Should All-Star games, should they be called something else? They can be called All-Pro or All-League, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
But at the same time, just give me a brief, just to kind of sum up your feelings on All-Star games in general, because to me they're boring and they don't do anything.
I think they're boring, and the only way you can fix them is to make everyone mean something. Right. Like if you did every single one like the baseball one, where it was like in the NBA, East versus West, and the winner gets home court advantage.
That's huge.
So whoever wins,
that's huge.
Gets something. So that's why everyone's playing for it. Or if the NFL somehow could move theirs into a bye week or something, and then they're like, hey, whoever wins. Get something. Yeah, they play in a neutral site though, so I'm fine with that. Right. But everything else, it's make it mean something, or else it doesn't matter. Why have it? I guess it's nice to say, wow, Stafford's a 3-time Pro Bowler.
Right.
But
that doesn't matter.
But if you're going to talk about the long term, is he really good or not? The he's a 3-time Pro Bowler is the least of the concerns.
Hey, he's won a Pro Bowl MVP too. Don't you forget about that.
When we're going to talk about our LeBron, Michael Jordan segment, LeBron's been to 15 All-Star games, and who cares?
Nobody cares. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So,
absolutely.
Make it mean something or nothing.
Right. All right. That's going to be it for this episode of I'm Always Right. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, find us on Instagram, and find us on SoundCloud.com/I'm Always Right PC. And guess what, guys? We're going to YouTube. This episode right here is going to YouTube. Find us on YouTube. We will see you guys, as always, next week.